All right, welcome everyone. This is David Morgan of the morganreport.com, and I have a new guest, or guests, I should say, Thomas Perilla, and I have been back and forth on LinkedIn several times. He's certainly someone that I pay attention to. Rather than read off your bio from LinkedIn, Tom, why don't you just tell us how long you've been in banking, investments, VC, and all that you do, and particularly your affiliation with mining.
I started with Morgan Stanley in 1994. I was on the 60th floor of the South Tower. Came back here to Erie years later, worked with National City Bank, where I ran the brokerage division here for Northwest Pennsylvania. And I got to the mining sector just sort of by accident. I saw what was happening politically in our country, and the spending just kind of got out of hand. And I looked at the mining sector and I thought, well, that's the place that we're going to have the most value. And I think we're right on it. I mean, we're in the exact right sector at the right time in history. The U.S. debt's just gone ballistic, and you look at the projections for the next 10 years, it's going to go maybe 54, 60 trillion. I don't see how we can hold up to something like that. So that's what attracted me to the mining sector. I just think it's the right sector economically for us to be in. At the time, of course, when I started this, we weren't thinking about electric vehicles, but now all of a sudden you've seen this huge other added demand come in, especially on the silver side, solar panels, electric vehicles, things like that. That really wasn't that big of a deal 20 years ago. So I think we're going to have a situation with gold and silver where you've got shortages coming, and everything eventually comes down to just supply versus demand. So I think we'll see much higher gold and silver prices. So that's really what kind of attracted me to it. And I've seen what's happened to our country as far as the loss of purchasing power. And gold and silver, to me, is the only way that you can get around that. You take a guy that worked 45 years or so, put his time in a steel mill, went home, put his money all in dollars. Back in those days, he didn't play the stock market. And he turned around, he lost 98.5% of his money in purchasing power. That's just criminal. That same guy could have been purchasing gold and silver the whole time and held on to that purchasing power. And that's one of the things I think will not just attracted me, but I think it's going to attract everyone to this sector. They're going to begin to realize that the fiat dollar just can't live forever. And if you're going to just stack debt on top of it, you're going to speed up the decline of it at some point. And gold and silver, everyone's going to come back to it because in the end, that's the one true currency you can lean on. So that's what brought me to the sector.
Well said. I could veer off the road, but I'm going to try to stick on the path. Before we get into mining and your two friends that you brought with you, I just want to look at the big picture. I mean, you look at Gerald Celente and some of the other commentators in this space, and they talk about, when you get to the fact where usury gets so onerous that it takes up a great portion of the budget, like it is in the U.S. and other countries, basically you see war. And when we see war, I mean, I'm not blind, I could talk about it, but I really want to look at the other war, and that's cyber war. I really think that probably the most likely, in my view, and I've been writing about this for our premium members for years, is some type of brokerage house, money center bank, foreign currency exchange, massive bond sale, whatever that takes place in the financial sector. And that's almost as devastating as bombs, meaning that, if you stop commerce, and I don't think it's out of the question. I mean, I was thinking about our interview yesterday and, what do you think is the chance? And I don't know. I'd say it's probably less than 10%, but 10% is 1 out of 10. I mean, if you had a 90% success rate flying, would you get in an airplane knowing that 1 out of 10 wasn't going to make it? So in real terms, that's a pretty high. Now, it's just my guess, but I want, it's about you guys. And I have strong views, as you know, but that's my take, that there's other wars out there that we need to be concerned with. And maybe this ground war, as horrible as it is only part of the story. What say you?
I think the cyber attacks, our government does a pretty good job of hiding most of those from the public. But they eventually creep out there. Recently, the U.S. car dealerships were attacked. And it almost shut them down. And they kept that really quiet. It's starting to get out there now into the media, but they kept that really quiet. Now, you can tell our enemies have been probing a lot of our supply chains. So they're going after the water plants, trying to figure out how they can handle that. I think they've tried to hack into our dam systems where maybe they could get a situation where a dam might fail. On the brokerage side, that potential cyber attack on the Federal Reserve is interesting. Somebody's selling a massive amount of treasuries all at once, like the Chinese. They're always rumored of doing that, bullying us. I don't think that's as big a threat because with a fiat currency, the Federal Reserve could just hurry up and do quantitative easing and just buy them. So I think they could weather that. The cyber attack would be much more dangerous, because could somebody come in like we saw Berkshire Hathaway stock trading at a penny the one day.
Yeah.
If you had a situation where somebody is clearly someone's probing the system, if they can get in there and shut things down and paralyze it, all of a sudden you'd have some panic. And then people would understand, okay, these guys can shut that down. Maybe they can shut down the power system. Maybe they can shut down, everything you've got. So that starts to scare people, and then that's what they want. Any terrorist wants to have panic because that's the whole idea of a terrorist attack. But yeah, I would have more concern about a cyber attack, I guess, than I would the treasury sales. But so far, I think we've done a decent job of keeping it at least, contained.
I'm going to circle back to mining and have a few words, and then you brought some guests with you and want to get into that. First of all, I had been a member of the Northwest Mining Association before I moved to the Northwest, and of course stayed with them the whole time. It's dissolved now. But we have an expression, if you can't grow it, it has to be mined. I mean, most people don't have any conception about how powerful mining is to their lives, especially in a high technology age. And you and I both know that, and I don't speak for others very often, but you get leverage in the mining sector. And usually the miners lead the metal, and it's not happened this time. But as far as value is concerned, there's unbelievable value in the mining sector right now, and it's very hated. It's underinvested. And I think part of that's ETFs. You can comment. I don't like to control the conversation, but I really like to focus on mining and get to, our other guests about the Golden Triangle, why you're excited about it, what opportunities lie therein, and your overall take on mining. And you guys can just start out and give us some education here. Most of my viewers are serious investors looking for real opportunity and looking for, let's say, a risk-reward profile that benefits the reward over the risk. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah. I think probably my entire career, I've never been more excited about a particular sector or an area, I think, in my whole life. What's going on in the Golden Triangle right now is just really exciting. It's amazing. The glaciers have receded about 20%. The mineralization up there is just massive. And in my opinion, it's the last truly massive amount of mineralization that is undeveloped in the world. We may go under the ocean someday. I hope we don't. But I think on land, I think it's going to be the Golden Triangle. And I don't know, maybe Roger, if you could maybe share some insights on what's happening up there in the Golden Triangle so people understand what it is.
Sure. To your point, there's been glaciers receding, permanent snowpack is no longer there. So what does that mean in layman terms is the fact we have brand new mineralization outcropping its surface that have never been drilled before, never been sampled before until recent times. And that's the case for certainly Goliath as well as Juggernaut here. The activity is a key area to, if you go back and watch some of the, I guess it was the BMO conference, a number of the CEOs, Barrick, Newmont, basically stating out loud that, the Golden Triangle is a key area of focus for them and for the future. So, I think we're in a great location, world-class geological setting, mining-friendly jurisdiction, First Nations, pro-mining, pro-business. And, the majors are coming home to roost because, they put, billions and billions of dollars into a certain project, and, you don't want the government changing. And then somehow, that project is taken away, being nationalized. So, even just today, news from Skeena Resources, $700 million US confirmed to advance that project. You had Newmont buying Newcrest recently, and they've got a very large footprint already with Newcrest, with the Bruce Jack mine that is operational under a glacier. So that just recently happened, and I guess Newmont with GT Gold purchased back in, I guess it would have been 5 years ago, or plus or minus. So I think we're in the right sector. As we all agree that, gold, silver will continue to rise with what's going on a global macro level there. So.
Yeah, I know the Golden Triangle has a shorter drill season than down, in the States. Your drill season is about to kick off. How long does that run for? 60 days, 90 days?
Yeah, well, typically we're mobilizing sort of May, June, and we can drill until call it September, October. It really depends on what Mother Nature throws your way. We announced Goliath's mobilization. I guess that would have been maybe 3 weeks ago. Sorry, Dan, not to steal your thunder here. Juggernaut announced their mobilization to drill their Bingo property, which is in the Golden Triangle as well, actually just south of our Sherbet discovery, as well as their Midas property near Terrace, which is just to this further to the south.
Yeah, David, for your listeners, I think this is kind of a real education when you're looking at mining companies. Understand the differences between an exploration company and a production company. And then when you look at the exploration companies, what I try to do, I want to see the drill results, and I want to see that they're proving out their property, because that tells people they're not taking shortcuts. So that's one of the things I look for mining companies. I want to go through and see, okay, how many meters are you going to drill this year? What are your results from last year? Let me see things in black and white. Because as you know, you can go talk to a mine owner and every single one of them hit the mother lode. I bet I looked at 200 mines across North America before I picked up mine, and everyone, it was perfect. And then I started demanding 43 101s from them, and because I can just read it in black and white. And that's what I would tell your listeners to do is do your homework, look at the drill results, look at the companies that are putting money into their properties, because if they can prove their property out at their exploration stage, then a producer like Newmont is going to come in and buy them. And I think some of these numbers up in the Golden Triangle are going to be tremendous. I think some of these, you might see 2.5 billion market valuations in these things when they eventually get taken out, because I think that's the level of mineralization that's in the ground. So once they prove it out, then the big guy will step in and come in for production. Production is going to be a real key. I mean, I saw just the other day, right now, we're down to 9 days of silver production left sitting in the Shanghai vaults. So there's not much silver sitting out there. One more bull move, maybe silver goes to 33 or 34. That might clean out what's sitting around. Once silver and gold go into the periods of short supply, that's when guys like Newmont, they've got to find additional supply. So they're going to go out and pick up companies, that have proved out their properties and then get them into production. Otherwise, they're just not going to be able to keep up with their own supply demands. Now, in your case, Dan, you're right next to Goliath. Are your properties right up against each other?
Our projects are 8 kilometers as a crow flies, so relatively close logistically. And we're in the same rock package too, where the sediments and the volcanics meet. There's a contact point. So we're seeing the same thing that we see geologically at Sherbet is what we're seeing at Bingo.
And now, in a case like yours, I mean, what kind of drill projects are you doing this year? What size are you doing?
We're going to do a total of 6,000 meters, and that will be between our Midas project and our Bingo project. So our Bingo project is a shear hosted vein at surface. You can trace it visually at surface for over 600 meters. We drilled into it last year. We got excellent results on that program. It kind of looks like a Goliath 2.0. Just a couple of years prior. So we'll do 3,000 meters of drilling on that project. There'll be a total of 16 drill holes, proving the extent of the shear, and then also stepping back, showing some width to that discovery. We'll also be drilling our Midas property, which is just outside of Terrace. We'll be drilling 3,000 meters there. And that's on a volcanogenic massive sulfide. They're known as VMSs. Very high grade, very concentrated, and we'll be drilling 3,000 meters on that project. To kind of put that into context, there's a storied mine by the name of Eskay Creek that was discovered by Murray Pesum, Art Clements, and Chediziah Zidziak was a geologist that ran a drill program in the late 80s, 1988. They drilled 176 drill holes blind. There was no outcrop expression of the target. And on their 176 drill hole, they hit pay dirt. And that stock went from 30 cents to $64 in 6 months' time. It was the world's richest gold mine for a decade. It was so profitable that they flew DC-10s into a remote region of BC, built an airstrip, took all the seats out of the DC-10s, and would fly the doré out. So that's a VMS discovery. We're sitting just outside of Terrace. You can get out of a hotel room bed. We don't have to build a camp, and you can drive onto the property in 15 minutes. So we're going to be drilling that just outside of Terrace too. Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, some people like to come up and actually put their hands on a project and look at it. If a person wanted to come up to the Golden Triangle in the summer, let's say in July, what's the weather conditions like up there? It's still cold?
It varies. BC's had a tad bit of we had weird weather this year. It was an unusually warm winter, and it's been a little bit of a cooler spring, but the snow is pretty much all gone. And locations are all GPS by the technical team the year prior. So we're post discovery at surface, and you have all these GPS locations. So you just build a pad and drill. Weather in Northwestern BC in the summer is really not a challenge. Actually, back to Eskay Creek, they drilled right through the winter too as well. So it can be done. Once you're into a discovery, you can bang drill holes like nobody's business throughout the winter. The costs are more once you've lowered the risk. So yeah, Northwestern BC it's certainly doable.
I know a lot of the large guys are up there now. Sprott, McEwen, Crescat Capital. Who are the other guys that are up there? You got Australians are up there right now?
Yeah, South 32 is a very large landowner in Northwestern BC. Newmont is now the largest landowner in Northwestern BC. They're all there. If they're not already there, they're trying to get a seat at the table. And that goes from Yamana, AngloGold Ashanti, Barrick, Newmont. You just go down the list of miners, and they're looking to get a seat at the table if they're not already there. Northwestern BC, the Stakina terrain, Hazelton Volcanics, is mapped as one of the top 5 to 10 rock packages left on planet Earth underexplored. The seniors all know this. There's always been one issue at Northwestern BC, and that's been snow and ice due to global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it, whether fancied or real, man-made or not, which is a different story. Rocks are sticking out of the ground that haven't seen the eye of man in over 20,000 years. So we're at a very specific time in history where this world-class rock package is showing its head for the very first time in modern time. And we're one of the first movers into this region, chasing this world-class package of rocks. There's a direct correlation between Nevada and Northwestern BC. So they both have what is called an unconformity. And an unconformity, geologically, is a gap in time. So you'll go from Triassic to Jurassic, and then there's just a gap. And say Paleozoic is missing, whatever that time gap. So millions of years are just missing. And what that's created is deep plumbing right down to the mantle, right down to the Earth's crust. And that will bring those fluids up in several events. It's the same thing we see in Nevada. That's why you've got these world-class deposits in Nevada. There's an unconformity that's related to the Carlin. So we're seeing that exact same thing in Northwestern BC. Just picture walking into Nevada 200 years ago. That's the opportunity here. That's what we've uncovered.
Well, I think from a timing point of view, it's almost perfect with what's happening up there, because what I see going on with the overall gold and silver market, I mean, in my opinion, David, the Federal Reserve is almost trapped right now. I'm seeing all around the country, in every market, places that I thought were almost untouchable, really hot spots in Florida, down in, Texas, Fort Worth area. I'm seeing the commercial real estate market just implode in every sector. And that's coming down on the banks hard. So I think the Federal Reserve has now got themselves boxed into a corner where They may not want to cut interest rates, but I think they're going to be forced to, because they're going to have to make a decision. Either they inject liquidity right now or fairly soon in order to save the commercial real estate market and simultaneously save the regional banking system. And if they don't do that, then they're going to have to turn around late in the year and do a bailout for the regional banking system, because they can't let them all fail. So my opinion would be, these politicians, they'll say anything to stay in office. So they're not going to use the term bailout. So inject liquidity, that just sounds nicer. That means they're coming in to save us. So I think they're going to inject liquidity. I think they're going to cut rates, inject liquidity. And when they do that, the mining sector should just explode. So I think we're literally heading towards one of the most perfect times in history where you've got the Golden Triangle coming of age. I mean, now, the glaciers receded, the companies are up there drilling, they're proving out the properties, and simultaneously we're heading into a period where I think gold and silver may outperform the rest of the market, maybe for the next 10 years. I mean, I'm looking at you mentioned the U.S. debt. In 2017, the U.S. debt, the interest on it was 7% of our country's funding. In 2024, it jumped to 13%. So we've gone from 7% up to 13%, and now the interest on our debt is actually higher than the U.S. spending on defense spending. That's crazy. I mean, we're setting up a situation where I think the U.S. dollar is going to take a hit. The Fed's going to have to inject liquidity, and all those things point back towards the mining sector. What stock goes up, what stock goes down, that's for an individual investor to decide on their own. This is meant as an informational discussion. What I see in the Golden Triangle is one of the most exciting things I've seen, I think, in my career. I think people are going to come out of there. I think true wealth is going to be created, not just money. Yeah, I think we're talking generational wealth. And companies like Crescat Capital that got up there early, I think they're going to be name brands. If you remember back in the 80s, Peter Lynch kind of made Fidelity a name brand. I think you're going to see the same thing. The guys they're at Crescat, I think Tavi Costa, he may be a guy that you see on CNBC every other day because he's going to become a major name brand for that group. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great year. I think we're heading for a lot of turmoil in the U.S. We get closer to the election, it's going to get worse and worse. And all those things, again, kind of point back toward gold and silver. And you mentioned some of the geopolitical issues going on right now. Where isn't there a geopolitical problem? I mean, Lebanon and Israel are right at each other's teeth. The Ukraine's falling apart. Africa, there's a war going on there. It's just not being covered. But I'll tell you what, the Russians and the Chinese are all over Africa right now. And it's almost a land grab. I see the Chinese, it's almost like they're trying to annex the DRC. They're flying a lot of gold out of there. So I see all around the world geopolitical problems everywhere you turn. And all those things come back to a point where you say, okay, I want stability. I want something that's strong. I want gold and silver. Do you really want to hold a piece of paper? So in my opinion, what I would do is I'd look at a 90-10 portfolio mix where 90% of your holdings were physical gold and silver, maybe platinum, and 10%, I like to go and look for exploration miners. That's what I enjoy. So I like the hunt. And that's why I asked about the weather up there. I know a lot of mining enthusiasts, they like to go up and look at things like that. The way Dan described what he's seeing on the ground, it's pretty fascinating. To be able to go over and actually have a geologist go over there and pick up the actual rocks and look at them, things that haven't been seen in that long. It's kind of a fascinating place. So I'm going to try to make it up there just to view the place this summer. But I think that's what makes investing fun. It can be a treasure hunt. It just doesn't have to be black and white, a boring job. I mean, you can have a lot of fun looking at these companies and trying to find your own, hidden gem. And I think we're heading for a great year. It should be a lot of fun.
Sure sounds like it. Either Roger or Dan, so you make a discovery and let's say you get bought out by Newmont. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're looking at 5 million ounce kind of a threshold or thereabouts before they're really going to go anywhere because of the size of their companies and their balance sheet. And the second part of it is, can you mine year round? It sounds like the weather's just too tough during the winter to mine year round. But if you make a big discovery, you get bought out, what would the mining profile look like?
Yeah, the tier or the Newmonts of the world, the Barracks and so on, they are looking for tier one deposit at the end of the day. Certainly with Goliath, based on our success to date, we've pretty much hit on every hole. We've drilled over 1.8 square kilometer area. The potential tonnage ranges is significant. And, I do believe that this will be a tier one asset by the time we finish our job. And second part of your question, Bruce Jack operates year round. It's underneath a glacier. So once you go underground, it's a different story down there. You can, operate, 365 kind of thing, 24/7 kind of deal. But, in the early days, obviously, we're dealing with Mother Nature up and above on the mountain ranges and so on, the ridges. But as soon as you go underground, you can no problem going and operating year round. And the benefit too, where Goliath is situated and Juggernaut, we're sit on tidewater. So guess what? You get tidewater access. You've got the town of Kitsault, which houses up to 300 people. So guess what? They don't have to build a camp. You have a town you can drive to in 3.5 hours from Terrace. There's power 25 kilometers away. This tidewater barge access either side of the projects takes you down to Prince Rupert, which is 190 kilometers to the south. You've got rail that takes you right across Canada, or a deep sea port to, ship whatever you want to do, concentrate or doré or what have you. I think it's a great place to be down near the southeast portion of the triangle, because it just has a lot of benefits to it. And not to mention the metallurgy works. Goliath's getting a 92.2% recovery at a 327 micron crush. I guess about 35 to 40% of the holes we drilled last year, we had visible gold up to 11 millimeters in size, these nuggets. So, seeing VG in holes is a rare and special thing. And, again, that's why we're so confident that, there will be a tier one asset when we're finished our job. And I do believe it'll be a mine one day.
And just to segue in there quickly on what Roger had to say, you have to look at the facts. And two facts that really stick out in my mind are this, and they're straightforward and they're simple. Newmont purchased Pretium for $19 billion, right? And the second one is the acquisition of GT Gold, $311 million by Newmont, and there wasn't 5 million ounces proven in the ground there, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things going on in Northwestern BC. Actually, I'd like to make a correction. Pretium wasn't purchased for $19 billion. It was Newcrest that was purchased by Newmont for $19 billion. So there's big transactions happening in Northwestern BC. The seniors are rushing to get a seat at the table. Some analysts have said that this region will produce more gold than Nevada. Now, that might not be today, but within the next 200 years. So get ready. A lot of exciting things coming.
Sure. And I think even with gold and silver prices heading north to where we think they're going to go, I think that even kind of adds fuel to the fire to, these guys coming in. And, like you say, Dan's put it so well, they want a seat at the table in a world-class geological setting where, again, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg of what we have explored. Our land packages are quite large, and there's still, and I'd say, Dan, I guess for you guys and us, I think we're kind of like 80% is unexplored to date, right?
I would say at least, right? We saw GT Gold go from 10 cents to being purchased at $3.25 a share.
Yeah.
And they did not have 5 million ounces proven. So,
Well, it's certainly the area of interest. I mean, me being in the sector for so long, and I've been there a couple times, but in fact, it is not only beautiful, but weather-wise, it's interesting. Of course, I've been there in the summer. In fact, my first helicopter ride, not my first helicopter ride ever, but my first helicopter ride to a site was up there. And of course, that's always a thrill to get a helicopter ride. Anyway, I think we've covered what pretty much we wanted to. We got the big picture. We know where gold and silver are going. We know the best way to gain leverage is to get in the mining sector. I like what you said, Tom. Your very conservative like me, and of course, it's always an individual's choice. But I always think you should have the real money first, and then use your speculative funds into the mining sector. Certainly, that's where you can get super leverage, and the whole sector has been so overlooked for so long that I think our time is inevitable. The area we're talking about is certainly probably the best area, as you said. I think I forget which one of you said it, Dan or Roger, but there's one of the top, what did you say, 5 or 9 or something areas
Top
in the
5.
world. 5.
Yeah.
And
Top
you know,
5.
it's something to pay attention to. And I have to back up a little bit more, Tom, because being on the lecture circuit for so long, and you know, seeing so many junior mining companies in my life and going on so many mining trips, and you know, I gave this lecture. It didn't make the promoter very happy, but I said, you know, of all those booths out there, there's an average. You know, because if you talk individually, they've got the best project, the best management team, the best infrastructure, with the best balance sheet. I mean, it's just not true. There's an average. There's 1,000 companies out there, and there's an average, and there's some that are below average. You know, not every company in the junior sector is going to win. In fact, the odds are not that good. So you really have to, you know, use your head. And what I like about the sector is you could be late to the party and still do really well. And what I mean by that, I give the horse track analogy. But if you're making a bet at the racetrack and you got to put your bet down before the race starts, you know, your odds are your odds, it's going to happen or not. But if you could go to the window when there's only, you know, one turn left, and now you know which are the top 3, you can make a pretty sizable bet and have some pretty good odds. And that's the junior sector. A lot of times I wait and say, well, you didn't get in at 10 cents. You got in at, you know, 82 cents and it only went to $3. Yeah. And it was a lot safer when I did it. You know why? They made a discovery. So I just had to throw in my 2 cents. I'll give it back to you guys. If you have anything that we haven't talked about that you want to say to our viewers, and thank you all for your time and the education. I think it was well worth my time to do this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, David, I think on my side, I'd like to end it with kind of take us back to 2008 when the credit crisis hit. I did a lot of work in the bond market for years, and what's frightening to me is I've recently seen a huge bump now in credit default swaps. They're coming back. You would have thought after 2008 that would have been the end of it. But just recently, Bayview Asset Management, they did 2 trades worth $642 million. They sold insurance to 2 U.S. lenders against losses on its portfolio, and then turned around and sold that risk to investors. So that tells you we're right there at the edge where we're playing around again. You talked about a casino or taking a bet or betting on a horse. You're getting to the point where financially our banking system is not playing with the things that they should have put away and never brought back out. And I'm seeing red flags all over the place. So I'd be very concerned about banking stocks like regional banking companies. New York City Bank, or Community Bank, I do not believe that they're out of the woods yet. I think they're still in trouble. First National Bank, FNB, Valley, you can go Bank of Hawaii, even Bank of Guam. All the regionals are going to be in big trouble, I think. And that's what's going to push the Fed. And when they start to cut, I think this sector is just going to get red hot. So, from an economic point of view, when I see those credit default swaps, that's a red flag. So that would be something as an investor, I'd pay attention to that. And otherwise, I think I do just what you said. Do your own homework, make a lot of calls, look at the capital structure of a company. That tells you a lot about the CEO. And I look for companies top down. I like to invest in companies where I trust the CEO, whether it was a mining company or if they went and they ran a lumber company, they'd run it the same way. They'd have integrity and they'd have character. And you can tell a lot of that just by looking at their capital structure. Are they selling a ton of shares out in the market just to stay afloat? So do your homework on that side. But on the bigger picture, I just see red flags everywhere. So I think we're heading into a perfect period. People just need to be patient on the gold and silver side. The physical side, you're going to make a lot of money on that. Just keep stacking it up. And I would tell your investors, if you can, try to go in monthly and just keep adding to your positions, no matter what the prices are. Just keep stacking it up.
Good point.
All right.
Yeah,
Roger, let us know how we can get a hold of you. Sorry to interrupt.
that's fine. Yeah, no, on the webpage, Roger at goliathresources.com. Email is always the best because I'm traveling quite a bit. And if people are calling and what have you, I may not get that message or what have you, or it might be delayed for a week or so. But yeah, Tom, to your point there, take a good look at obviously do your own due diligence, and look at the share register. Who are the shareholders? We talk Crescat Capital. These guys have been hitting out of the park. Quentin Henning's been amazing, technical advisor to both companies, and their portfolio. I mean, they've got quite a few winners in their portfolio. And then Rob McEwen as well, shareholder. You got Eric Sprott. I mean, these are some big names. They've been around the block, and they don't like to lose money. So again, I think a key point for me, anyways, when I'm looking at the story, early stage, new discovery, is like, who are the main shareholders of the company?
Dan, you'd like to close out and let us know we can reach you?
Yeah, it's just go to our website, juggernautexploration.com, and under the contact there, dan@juggernautexploration.com is usually the best, or there's also a phone number there you can reach me at. To Roger's point, take a look at the shareholders. I often look at the shareholders like Christie's auction, that they kind of do a lot of the due diligence for you, that they've gone through and they verified that what you have has a real shot. And having that real shot has been verified by a number of different institutions that we have one being Quentin Henning from Crescat. So we're getting ready to drill, and we're excited. Exciting times ahead, right? Thanks.
Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was, again, worth our time and a bit of an education. And again, it's probably the most talked about area right now as far as things go in the mining sector. No one's talking mining. So at least we gave them a 1-2 punch. Thank you for your time. And we will probably meet again and maybe revisit other properties, or maybe get another update on this area. So thank you very much.
Yeah, lots of drilling going on, lots of updates, a lot of catalysts. So lots of things to look forward to for sure. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
6,000 meters coming your way. Drill, baby, drill.
15,000 meters coming your way.
Okay, good.
Thank you, David.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.